All right, my guest in the second hour, an expert in the whole hog barbecue realm. We'll also be talking about that for sure, but he might be the most academically accomplished guest I have ever had on the show, and I've had a lot of people on the show over the last 12 years. And you've heard the term smart like a rocket scientist. Well, this guy's actually a rocket scientist, so we head to the Fogo Charcoal Hotline and welcome first-timer to the show, Dr. Howard Conyers. Doctor, how are you?
How are you doing today, Greg?
I'm absolutely fabulous, and I appreciate you taking the time to join me. So do I want to call you Dr. Conyers or Howard? Or, I mean, what do you prefer? I don't want to be disrespectful.
You can start at Dr. Conyers and change one. Just go to Howard. As long as you know people know I'm a doctor, that's fine.
How about Dr. Sir? That way we get everything covered, and I'm ultra respectful. All right, so we got a lot to talk about here tonight, and I think let's start on the live fire and barbecue side from a background. So, if somebody's just joining for the first time or they stumbled over YouTube Live or whatever, a quick background on a young Dr. Howard Conyers, how you were introduced to live fire, and then we'll talk a little bit about the professional side.
Okay, I've been cooking whole hog barbecue, South Carolina whole hog barbecue my entire life. I learned from my father. I cooked my first whole hog around the age of 11. We didn't have a family restaurant. It was just more of a tradition in the PD area of South Carolina. A lot of families cook whole hog barbecue. And so I've been cooking it ever since, and I'm still cooking it, but now I'm doing a little more educating people about the history behind whole hog barbecue.
So aside from the live fire, you also go to school, you go to college, you have this whole professional career that I don't want to say it seems completely I'm not necessarily associating pitmasters with guys that go to Nassau for the day job and are working with literally rockets. So was rockets or science or engineering something that you were always passionate about, and it was just a normal path for you to go and educate yourself in that regard?
Yeah, math and science was always my first love growing up on a farm in South Carolina. And so I just stuck with the math and science. And being a pit master, which I didn't use the word growing up, we used to use barbecue cook. That's a whole new word, and we could talk about that too as well. But I did barbecue well before I learned what truly knowing what math and science and engineering really was. I just knew the direct application of it.
So how do you get a job with Nassau? Are you intern at some point, like during college, or did you see an ad in the want ads and you just applied and you were the most qualified candidate?
I got lucky. I applied through usajobs.gov, and that's where like the open house for all the federal government jobs and listings are posted.
So is that a job that was originally in South Carolina, or is that you work remotely, or where are you officed out of?
I actually work in Mississippi and live in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay. So, but you're obviously originally from South Carolina. So when does the migration take place out of the hometown and into the Big Easy?
First I went to college in North Carolina. I went to North Carolina A&T. Then after that, I went to Duke University. And once I left Duke, then I migrated toward New Orleans area.
And when I was doing a little research on you, I had heard a previous podcast that was, semi-recently released. And part of the want to get to New Orleans was in an effort to help however you could with the whole rebuild of Katrina, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. It was cheesy, but I said I wanted to help rebuild New Orleans.
I mean, not cheesy. I mean, that's pretty selfish or selfless of you, actually.
Yeah, but a lot of people start saying, once moving to New Orleans, you start hearing a lot of people making that same statement.
Oh, that they went down to help and
yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So it can lose a little bit of credibility when everybody and their mom's saying it. But I mean, I think the heart's in the right place with you. So. All right, so let's back out again. Let's go to barbecue. This is a barbecue-related show. Let's quickly talk about whole hog, because I think you're seeing whole hog's been around forever. It's always been very popular. You look in the Carolinas, both North and South Carolina, and that seems to, pork is barbecue down there, whether you're looking at shoulders specifically or whether you're looking at whole hog. So let's talk a little bit about whole hog and what you think it takes in order to do a proper whole hog pits and woods and cooking times and preparation and all that.
So since it's barbecue, I mean, for me, for cooking whole hog barbecue, I would say like You need a pit, whether it's cinder block, old fuel tank, refrigerator. Even some people want to dig a hole, but very few individuals dig a hole. And you're using direct heat. This is not no indirect heat stuff. You burning wood now, oak wood primarily. You may mix in a little bit of pecan or hickory, but it's primarily oak wood. You burn that down to embers. You put those embers underneath the butterfly hog, and you cook it for about 12 to 14 hours.
Are you cooking
that's whole hog?
What kind of or what size of a hog are you typically cooking?
Generally anywhere from 110 to 150.
Wow. So these are big hogs.
150 pounds. Yeah.
Seasoning?
They get cheaper. People don't tell you they get cheaper as the weight goes up.
Oh, really?
Really?
Oh, okay. Well, I just figured it just got a lot more expensive the more weight you put on that thing, but I guess it makes sense if you're buying in quantity, it would get a little bit cheaper. From a seasoning standpoint, are you a guy that, and I don't want to show competition bias here, or I mean, I've had a lot of competitors on the show over the last decade or so, but are you a believer in injections and complicated seasonings and stuff like this, or is it very basic?
So, like very traditional barbecues, they don't believe in very injections. It's very, especially in the Carolinas, it's more just salt if you get that, and maybe they'll do seasonings at the end. But it's primarily starts off with salt and nothing else.
So you're really letting the pork and the smoke kind of shine through as they mix together.
Correct. And then the fat.
At the end, when it's
ready.
ready.
Though, but what people don't realize, a lot of times the salt, they'll do seasoning at the end sometime. You'll see different guys put seasoning at the end, or also the barbecue sauces. And the barbecue sauces also has seasoning in it. And they cook that seasoning through the meat.
That's a whole different. So when we talk about barbecue sauce, and I'm glad you mentioned that, you can talk about barbecue sauce in a number of different places, and a lot of the time they kind of look the same, or they'll have some similar flavor profiles, maybe some liquid smoke stuff, especially when you start looking at some of the bigger sauce manufacturers. But South Carolina is very unique because you have a mustard-based sauce. It's not only mustard-based down there, but I mean, that's a real hyper-regional thing that's exclusive to that South Carolina area, and it's not the whole area. It's kind of a specific location. But mustard-based sauces. So, are you a mustard-based sauce guy? And if so, do you have like a secret home recipe?
I definitely have a secret home recipe. I'm probably more of a vinegar-based sauce, but it has mustard in it. Vinegar is the foundation of a lot of barbecue sauces in South Carolina. It's super regionalized. Like, people don't realize how regionalized it is. So some of your viewers maybe heard of Rodney Scott, and his sauce is very vinegar pepper based. Mine is more vinegar, pepper. Then you have mustard, some tomato in it as well. And we grew up in like two neighboring counties, about 40 minutes from each other, and that's to let you know how regionalized it is.
Is this a recipe that you learn from, your in-law or your parents?
I learned from my father. I learned this recipe from my father. And what is crazy about barbecue sauces in my area, it's so hyper regionalized. It's not even like county specific. I could go out 2 miles and I could tell where a family migrated from in my part of the county.
Really?
Really. If they tell me they like a purely vinegar pepper based barbecue sauce, I could tell where they pretty much came from.
When you look at a South Carolina whole hog and then you look at a North Carolina whole hog, are we talking about two different cultures altogether, or is there a lot more similarities than differences?
So a lot of your viewers people will come back, and you can send them to me, Greg, but I did some research on this.
All right.
South Carolina PD whole hog barbecue and Eastern North Carolina barbecue, whole hog is just the same thing. And I went to Eastern North Carolina, I went to Ayden, I went to Farmville, and I talked to pitmaster there. What has changed over the years is in the later years with whole hog, they start in Eastern North Carolina, they start chopping up skin inside their pork, as well as they chop it up. In South Carolina, it was a pulled pork when they finished cooking it. And that was the only difference I seen. They cook it on oak wood. They're using the same type pits, cinder blocks. They reducing embers, firing it directly underneath. There's really no difference.
But sauce is a little bit different up there, obviously, too. I mean, it is vinegar and pepper based, so I mean, I know there's some similarities between the two, but Typically
in the eastern half. I don't really talk about the western half of North Carolina or South Carolina. Sad to say, because I don't know much about that.
Got it.
I didn't grow up there.
No, we're talking with Dr. Howard Conyers. The website, by the way, howardconyers.com, Conyers, if you want to check it out here, and we're chatting it up here this evening. All right, Doctor. So I want to talk to you tonight with the majority of the time that we have. I had talked with Meathead from AmazingRibs.com in the first hour, and we were talking a little bit about the release. It's not a public list. I just have insiders that like to feed me information. But I have a final 9 list of what will end up being a top 3 that make it into the BBQ Hall of Fame class of 2019. And if you're interested, we can kind of go over that list and talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, let's go through it.
All right. So one of the other things that I had mentioned at the top of the show is that while we were talking, you and I were going to be talking this evening, we were going to be talking specifically about what is an obvious discrepancy in the amount of non-minorities that are included into the current state of the BBQ Hall of Fame. Women, people of color, what have you, versus who is in there currently. And there's a lot of competitors in there as well, aside from just normal restaurant pitmasters or pitmasters in general. So as we look at this 9 currently, we have off the bat Aaron Franklin from Franklin Barbecue, obviously well-known Texas brisket guy. Thoughts on Aaron Franklin?
I mean, he's well-known in the media. I mean, I went to Lockhart, Texas this past weekend, and I don't have to go to Aaron's Franklin Barbecue. No offense, Aaron, but the guys ain't like Lockhart. They're doing it right. They've been doing it a long time, and what you're doing in Austin is great, and you had a lot of media coverage, but those guys in Lockhart are really doing it well.
So do you think that he's getting that media coverage is helping him, or he has learned a craft in his way and perfected it, and somewhere along the line it got picked up and he's kind of reaping those rewards now?
I think he partially benefit from Austin transitioning to a tech town, and with being a tech town, I know this is not barbecue, but it ties into the whole story of why the media is so important. Once technology came around, and he's growing up in almost like a Silicon Valley, a lot of techies love barbecue, and they basically put him on this pedestal, and that's really where it took off. I mean, it took off with that media. And I don't think he purposely went out to get all this media attention. It just kind of came upon him.
Do you think that there's a certain responsibility then for him to carry whatever mantle he's carrying in order to carry on that expectation of great barbecue?
Yeah, he did. And one thing I would say about Aaron Franklin, when he won the James Beard Award, he did thank those other ones who came before him in Texas because he knew for sure that he's basically, I guess, carrying on something that they already started. So that was very admirable when he did that.
Next on the list is the guy that I just had on the first hour, Meathead from AmazingRibs.com. So he has one of the most heavily trafficked barbecue and grilling website. But on a scale of BBQ Hall of Famers, what do you think about that?
He definitely has the media coverage. I enjoy going to his website from time to time. 1 to 10. I mean, he's going to probably get in. Him and Aaron Franklin are going to probably get into this year's nomination. I wouldn't be surprised.
You think?
I think so.
On what?
Really, just
because of popularity and Google rank and media?
Popularity, yeah. Really? You look at some of the previous people like Guy Fieri.
No, we don't count that here on this show. We don't.
But I'm just saying.
Yeah. That was weird. All right. Next up through is Desiree Robinson. Meathead, very familiar with her when we were kind of going through the list. Cozy Corner Barbecue in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah, her media following is not as great, but if you want to think about it, like she reminds me a lot of somebody like Tootsie Snowden Barbecue in Texas.
Snow's Barbecue.
So she should be in there. I don't know who else on the list, but she's definitely worthy of a Hall of Fame consideration.
We got Wayne Monk, founder of Lexington Barbecue in Lexington, North Carolina.
Wayne Monk. Don't know much about Wayne Monk to say whether or not he deserve or not deserve recognition.
What about John Big Daddy Bishop, original founder of Dreamland in Alabama, Tuscaloosa.
He should have been in there in the first class, but I hate to see another dead African American in the Hall of Fame.
So same thing for C.B. Stubblefield or Stubbs Barbecue as we know him now?
Yeah, it's the same exact thing. He should be in there, but he shouldn't have had it should be some living representation.
And we have Michael Ray Higgins, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, but I did a little bit more research and talked to some people that are a lot smarter than me. So he's one of the co-partners of a company called J&R Manufacturing, and that's the company that makes Euler barbecue pits.
Okay. And it's a tough class. I mean, somebody like J.R. Euler, I heard of his pits, his smokers.
Yeah.
He should probably be in there.
You have Jim Quisenberry, who, from my most ardent diggings in the last 48 hours, what I can find is he sells barbecue sauces. Well, it's actually his kids, I think, that sells barbecue sauces because he's passed away, but was instrumental in those first couple years of Memphis in May, back when it was just a competition that was taking place under one tent versus what it's going to look like this coming weekend. If you can believe it.
Wow. He's probably an unsung hero. He may not make it. The only reason he might make it just because of what Memphis in May has evolved into.
Last but not least, Lem's Barbecue in Chicago legend James Lemons, who, by the way, as I had to educate Meathead, who is from Chicago, by the way. Originally, his two brothers opened up Lem's Barbecue, Bruce and Miles, in 1954, and then in 1968, the second location, which I believe is the one that James is more connected to, came about. And that's the final or the ninth potential nominee is this James Lemons from Lem's Barbecue in Chicago, known for the tips and the hot links primarily.
Right, and the aquarium smoker that a lot of people forget about, and he should definitely be in there. But there again, he goes back to my saying, I would love to see a living African American inside the Barbecue Hall of Fame. I think Mr. Lem is dead. God bless his soul, he should have been in on first class. So, I mean,
we have a living African American in Desiree Robinson.
That's my preference. If I had to pick one, not because of the body, not because of what the other people haven't done, but we need somebody alive.
I'm trying to think of the good question that I want to ask here. And I get what you're saying. You want to have somebody an African American that is alive to go into the Barbecue Hall of Fame. But if the Barbecue Hall of Fame, I don't know what you know about how the history of this Barbecue Hall of Fame, but for years and years it existed as some nonsense on the internet. And then the American Royal had bought it a handful of years ago and tried to make it into something a little bit more of what would be akin to a real Hall of Fame of sorts. So there isn't a lot of time that is back here. So I don't know. I mean, it hasn't been around for decades and decades and decades, and they've just been indiscriminately leaving people out, black people specifically. But if you can if James Lemons got in or C.B. Stubblefield gets in this year, is there any win for you that even though they have passed away, it's still more diversity that's being added into the Barbecue Hall of Fame?
I mean, it's a start. I would say it's a start, but I still say the recognition, like in the case of Mr. Lem, I don't think his family could benefit financially from recognition of being in the Hall of Fame. Stubblefield, they will benefit because whoever owned the sauce now may benefit somewhat from the recognition. But I think it's kind of also we all know these type of recognitions help these businesses in different ways than just people coming through their doors. And I think it's something to that.
All right, so I want to dig into this a little bit more. Let me put you on hold just for 2 minutes, and we will come back and talk a little bit more barbecue and Hall of Fame stuff with Dr. Howard Conyers. Again, his website, howardconyers.com. I'll talk to you quickly about the folks over at the Barbecue Guru.